Mm-mm-mm. Okay, well, Dennis, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Arlena, my big young sister.
My big young sister. Yes, I mean, I'm tiny in stature. I'm only like 5'3", but yes, a big in personality.
You are. I think we both have that.
You are too, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely cut from the same cloth. I am excited to have you back because we're going to focus this time on lots of solutions. You are a recovery coach, life mastery school per your logo up there in the corner. For those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, Dennis has a logo. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to ask you the lightning round. And then we're going to give a recap on your story because you were on before, and I will leave a link from your previous interview. But I enjoy talking to you so much. I'm so glad that you're back. But we're going to talk about some solutions in regards to maybe some of the things that might be holding you back if you haven't yet gotten sober. How's that?
I love that. That's great.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, fun, but yeah, let's do some fun because most of these podcasts are so heavy. You and I were kind of giggling before that we need to infuse some fun into this too, right?
I love fun. I'm outgoing fun person.
You are fun.
I am. Like,
we are not a glum nut.
Wind me up. Let me go. I'll take it. We'll have some fun.
Well, that's what we'll do. And I am going to ask you what you do for fun, but for as far as the lightning round questions go, when you first got sober, what was maybe like one of the most impactful books that you read?
Wow, that's a loaded question because the lights,
so many.
They were like the world was just opening up. I was just starting to understand life, so everything I read was like, wow, oh my God, no way. So it was all like really exciting and interesting, but I think like the big book was exciting because I was like all the lights and stuff were going off, but the 12 and 12, the 12 steps of 12 tradition, it really made things make a lot more sense. And so it was really informative to me. And outside of that, of the AA approved literature, I really liked reading. There is a book. It's called As a Man Thinketh.
Oh, that's a good one. Is that Viktor Frankl?
No, it's James Allen, I think.
James Allen, that's right.
I think it was written in like 1902, like over 100 years ago, and almost 120 years ago. And it's a lot of that came like Science of Mind, Law of Attraction, The Secret, and positive thinking and stuff like that. And it's like what you think about, you attract into your life, and that's really where a lot of that came from. And you know what, that came from the Bible too. So I mean, all this stuff is millenniums old. We didn't invent any of this shit. So
yeah, no, I mean, those ideas, not only the Bible, but it's in like all the ancient traditions. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
None of these ideas are new, but every generation sort of has like this rediscovery. So yeah, As a Man Thinketh is an amazing book. And the big book is sort of the nickname for the book called Alcoholics Anonymous, for those who are new. And the 12 and 12, did you know that the 12 and 12 was written after, it was Bill, right? Wrote the 12 and 12.
Yeah. 1951. After a little, it was like 12, 13 years later.
Wow. Yeah, he did it after a little psilocybin experiment.
Yes. Yeah. And a few relapses. Like he didn't. And a few relapses. Like everybody's like, Bill, he must have had like 50 years of sobriety. I think he only had like, I think teens. I'm not sure.
I don't know. That will be a good thing to look up. Like, how long did he have when he passed away? Yeah, our founding fathers wrote some interesting stuff. So those are really good books. Thank you for those. Do you have sort of a go-to mantra or quote that you live by?
Man, you're throwing these at me. I wasn't prepared.
I just told you them.
Well, yeah, like 3 minutes ago, and then we talked about other stuff.
Okay, I'll help you. I'll help you out with mine.
No.
So, do you have one?
Well, and yes, there's one that I live by, or not live by, but it helps propel me. And that is, and it's an ancient, not ancient, it's an old philosopher, but he said, all of man's problems and women come from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And that's one of my favorites because it reminds me that we're always out like doing something. We have to always be going and doing and making money and buying things and talking to people, and we can't sit still. And stillness and mindfulness have really become, integral to my, which I think is one of the next questions coming up, integral to like my daily living, sitting in stillness. When I get overwhelmed and stressed out and full of fear, my old solution was to go do something or drink something or smoke something or go scroll or make nonsense phone calls for no reason. Hey, what are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing? Oh, I'm sitting in traffic. Oh, what? Like those are just avoiding what's going on in your life. So sometimes the answer is just to sit still. So I love that
That's
quote.
so hard.
It is hard. Yeah. Yeah. Because it goes against our nature.
Oh, for sure. No, I mean, I grew up, I'm an achievement junkie. Like I'm like home, my inner, my default is that Home Depot, more doing.
Right. Yeah, go buy something and build something and do something and keep moving and keep going.
And listen, truth be told, there's nothing wrong with that, but my knee jerk is to distract. And in my mind, the purpose of obsession is distraction. Yes. Right. It's like, but what are we distracting from? And for me, that's why sitting is so hard. But yes, you're right. What a great reminder. That's a great saying. I don't know if that's a quote exactly, but I love that idea of that reminder of we need to, be still and know that I am God.
Yeah, there are great quotes, and I can't because I'm on the spot. I can usually spit out all kinds of quotes, but because I'm on the spot, I'm like, I don't know, but I love that.
Deer in the headlight. I love that.
Yeah.
No worries. If you think of something brilliant that you want to share, you just feel free to interrupt me and we'll include that.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a regular recovery routine or self-care practice?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's body, mind, and spirit is like and that could be like the quote, body, mind, and spirit. I have to always be working on those three. It's really hard to have all three in perfect alignment all the time, but I work on that all the time. And when I wake up in the morning, we have a choice on how we want our day to go. So I can wake up and look at the news and watch politics and get stressed out and worried. And that's the way my day goes. But the way I wake up is I wake up and I read something productive that's going to set my mind in the right direction. And I meditate and I drink lots of water and I exercise. And then I look at my calendar afterwards with clear direction. And that's the way my day goes. So if I wake up with a clear mind moving in the right direction, then my day goes in the right direction. I stick to that. That's pretty much the way I roll. And my whole life is like a life of service. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
And
stop messing around with that on your desk. I don't know what you're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I make like loud noises?
You're a podcaster. You ought to know better.
I know. I'm sorry.
Just teasing you.
No, I know. It's my nail clippers because I have a hangnail.
Oh dear. Well, I'm so sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So read something positive, meditate, water, exercise, calendar. And you do, like, I know you're in good shape. You exercise a lot. Can you share with me your meditation practice? Because I think a lot of people are really confused about what meditation is, especially early in recovery. What I hear from people is that I can't meditate. But maybe you can just kind of break down what meditation really is.
Absolutely. So you're right. There's a common misconception that you have to be like sit in robes, sitting in the Himalayas in a cave somewhere.
And have zero thoughts.
Yes, to meditate. And that's not true at all. You can meditate on the toilet. You can meditate at a red light. The idea is stillness and mindfulness. When I'm still and mindful, the answers can come in. There's space in my head for the answers to come in. Like if I'm listening to loud music or jumping into, Facebook or whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm probably thinking about my problems and the music that's on. But if I can sit in silence, I'm going to think about my problems, but there's space for the solutions and the answers to come in. So when I meditate, it's almost always in silence nowadays. I used to do a lot of guided meditation. And with my clients, I'm like, you know what, if you really can't sit still for more than 5 minutes, let's do like a progressive muscle relaxation or a body scan or something else. Like, are you inspired by the waves crashing on the beach or raindrops or birds chirping. Just make a start somewhere. And then eventually I want to move into silence, where that's where I calm down. And, if 20 for me, 20 is the magic number, right?
20 minutes.
If I meditate for 5 or 10 minutes, it definitely slows things down and I feel okay. But if I can hit 20, 25, for some reason, when I open my eyes after a 20+ minute meditation, all my senses are heightened. I could see better, hear better. I could feel better. My touch is better, everything. So really for me, it's stillness. And, there's a bunch of different techniques that we could talk about probably another time, but, really focusing on your breathing and focusing on being present.
Focus on breathing and being present. Yeah, I hear a lot of time when people say I can't meditate, what they're saying is that I can't clear my mind of thought is usually what ends up coming out. And so my response to that is usually that is not the goal. The goal isn't to is to not have any thoughts. I mean, your brain's job is to think.
Yes.
So for me, like what you said about just focusing on your breath, and then once you catch your mind thinking, you just notice it and then gently, gently bring it back to the present moment. Because, even now, sometimes I go, "God, fuck, I'm thinking again, but it's like, no, there doesn't have to be any hostility about noticing that I'm thinking. It's just like, oh, bring it back to the breath. And if my mind strays 1,000 times, I just bring it back 1,000 times. That's all.
Yes. And can I share? Here's a great quote, actually, if you want to use this as the quote.
Okay.
And that is the idea of meditation. It's not to control your mind. It's to not let your mind control you.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes.
Don't let your mind.
Yeah.
And that is the thing, right? Like, holy moly, the whole thing about addiction is that your mind is in control.
Yes. We have on average 60 to 80,000 thoughts every day. And if those were all awesome, useful, productive thoughts, how great would that be? But most of them are like useless or harmful thinking. So if we can not let those take over our lives and drive our daily activities, then we have a better chance of hitting our goals, being successful, healthy, happy, and overcoming our addictions.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is the National Science Foundation said that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. 85% of those thoughts are negative, and 95% of those thoughts are the same as the day before.
So I never heard that one.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So we are actually, and then we make decisions and take actions based on those thoughts. And then we are basically in a loop. So we are literally living in the residual of all of yesterday's decisions and thoughts and actions, right? So it's Groundhog Day. So if you find yourself asking, how did I get here again? It's all based on thought. So I love the process that you offer for meditation, because that's where the change can happen.
Yeah. And there needs to be change. Like one of the bumper sticker things we hear all the time is like, nothing changes if nothing changes. So if I'm stuck in that loop every day and I'm wondering why I'm not hitting my financial goals and why my relationship continues to suck and why I can't lose
get sober
30 pounds, I can't get sober, it's because I'm stuck in that loop. So great point. Wow. Yeah. Wow. We're really solving a lot of the world's stuff, and it's only been 5 minutes.
It's only been a year. You are so right. Gosh, and we haven't even gotten to the, this is one of my favorite questions. What would you tell younger Dennis? What's the one thing you wish you knew when you first got sober?
I would have to say, ask for help. We're taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness, but it's not. It's actually a sign of strength. Reaching out, saying, and, with humility, being like, I don't understand this. I can't figure this out on my own. Otherwise, I would have by now. Right. And so reaching out to somebody who is on the other side of the addiction, or just is doing better in life, or whatever you define as better, or just somebody that has something you want, is how we used to say in 12-step. And it's like, reach out and be like, hey, how did you get there? I can't figure this out. Maybe you can guide me through this. And because by myself, I'm stuck with my 80,000 thoughts from yesterday that are negative, and I can't figure it out. So ask for help. That's my big one.
I love that. I love what you said about if I could have done it, if I could have done it already, I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, ask for help. It is a sign of strength. Our society, sees that as weakness, but it takes a lot of courage to be able to ask for help.
It
And the
really
thing is,
does.
there are so many people who are willing to give it. Everybody loves giving free advice. Are you kidding me?
Right. They just don't follow their own advice. They just give it up.
Yeah, give it up smooth. Yeah, that
Yeah, but
is.
you know what? Like one of the things I tell my clients all the time too is like, yes, we want to ask for help, but we also want to learn. We want to become independent too. And we
For sure.
want to learn things on our own too. So I can't just sit here if we're in a session and give you all the answers. I want you to figure some stuff out too. So, if you're stuck, I can't figure this out. Definitely ask for help and then start Googling stuff. Google has the answers to pretty much anything in the world. So I can't figure this out. Like, which store should I go buy this? How can I meditate? How can I do this? Google it.
Here's the problem. A lack of information is not the issue, it's applying it. And I think that's why it's so important to have somebody like you in life, right? For the fellas, I still sort of kind of, I know you help a lot of the men, apply the information. It's about applying it. So you're all about the action and applying the information. The information is all out there, but we don't do it for a reason, right? And we'll talk about that later. I do want to ask you about your recovery journey, but we're going to talk in this episode about how to uncover and identify some limiting beliefs, and they prevent us from applying that information. So I guess that's like a teaser. I don't know. I don't usually do that, but I need to know what you do for fun these days, because we are not a glum lot. We like having fun. What do you do for fun these days?
Well, I'm in the process of moving to the beach, and the beach is my happy place. So
Yeah.
right now it's it's a strange time in my life, but it's good because I can handle it because I'm sober and I actively live a life of sobriety and self-improvement. So
Yeah.
I can handle it. And I'm doing all this while working, and I'm selling everything I own. I'm moving to a minimalist lifestyle. It's quite interesting,
Beautiful.
actually. All the
Yeah.
stuff that I used to have that I can't say I've never been a very materialistic person, but the stuff that I had that I thought made me happy, um, and some of it definitely it brought some joy or whatever. But
Mhm.
like the example I'm gonna give right now is like last week, this woman came and picked up my whole living room set, and I had a cool
Oh,
little living room. It was like
it was
HGTV,
beautiful. I
yeah, it was really nice.
remember. Yeah.
And she took it away, and I was like. And it was like empty, and there was like echoes again, and I was like, oh my god. And I set up my folding chairs in my living room, and I'm like, I love this. It was free, it was
Ah,
empty, there's elbow room, there's a space to walk through the whole living room, and I was like, I love it. And my whole house is emptying out, so I love that. And
yeah.
so at the end, in the next like 4 to 6 weeks, all I'm gonna have left is my 4 suitcases that I'm bringing to Mexico. So for
Wow.
fun right now, I mean, for me, fun is the beach, but I exercise a lot, and I swim a lot, I walk a lot, jog. I would say running, except I call it middle-aged running, which is really like a fast walk or jog sometimes. And I like lifting weights, and that gives me energy, and I
Mhm.
like eating well and drinking lots of water. The things that used to be such a chore that people are like, you should do this and you'll feel better and stuff, they've become the way that I live now. So I
I,
enjoy that.
I hate that word should, because
Yeah.
without knowing it, it actually creates resistance.
It
Man,
does.
eliminate that shit out of your life. Don't ever say should. Yeah, here's what I found is that when you give someone permission to keep doing the bad behavior, they make the choice themselves to to do something better.
Yeah, we're resilient by nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
tell me you should do that, like when I was drunk, years ago, I would sit on the bar stool and I would say, you should do this and you should do that. And they would all look at me like, well, your life kind of sucks. So if I do what you're telling me I should do, I'm going to end up like you. So I don't
Right.
do that anymore.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
That's like the worst parenting approach ever.
Sure.
We learn by example. Okay, so that I love that minimal lifestyle, moving to Mexico to live by the beach. I mean, you're talking about like spending time in nature, and that is so like rejuvenating.
It
Yeah,
is
just getting
so
back to
rejuvenating.
nature. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, so how about you tell me? I'm so curious always, and I don't know that I hear a lot of stories about people sort of like turning points. It's like, okay, it's like we develop these addictions. I know you had a pretty crazy story. You don't have to rehash the whole thing, but you know, maybe a little bit about what it was like. But I'm really so curious about what was the pivotal moment for you when you decided to quit drinking, because it's the decision that really fascinates me.
Mm. Yeah, great point. The 30-second version, I was a crazy maniac ski racer, party ski bum chef guy for 10 years. And that was up in Northeast Vermont. And then I moved out here to Colorado over 21 years, 22 years ago now. And and I kind of kept it going, but I stopped skiing. So then I was living in suburbia, living that lazy, drunken lifestyle. And then I started eating fast food and stuff, and I stopped skiing. So I didn't have the activity. So I put on a bunch of weight, and I was just like the fat, drunken dude. Who you see now is not the man that I once was. And
You're Mr. Fit now.
yeah, and that all came to a head. And in 2003, I lost the job I was proud of, and I spent all the money, used all the resources in my life were all spent. I couldn't turn to family or anybody anymore for money or help or anything. And that was my pivotal moment. And um, I ended up in a 30-day rehab center, and I just kind of latched on. It's funny. I was just doing a podcast with somebody else a couple hours ago, and they asked a similar question. But, I got there, and there were, in rehab, you can go, and there's a lot of people that are like bouncing in and out of rehabs, and that are there for their wife or their husband or the law or their job or whatever. But I was there because I needed to change. Like I remember there was a small group, like the rehab I was in, it was like 50 people. So we had like these big meetings with everybody. And then they had a small group where there was like 6 or 7 of us. And people were going around the room that were there longer than me. And it was only like my first or second day. And they were talking about different things in their lives. And it came to me, and I just started crying. And I said, I can't stop drinking. Like, people were talking about resentment and fear and insecurities and heartache and financial problem, like all this stuff. And I was like, I didn't know those were the reasons I couldn't stop drinking, that I needed to work on life. But I just started crying, and I said, I can't stop drinking, and I don't know what to do. And it's the saddest
Oh,
thing. So if you're listening and you can't stop drinking, I understand. And I know Arlena does too.
I
And
do.
that's the hardest thing. We look at people on the outside. This is why I think it's important to work with people who know what it's like to be drunk and not be able to stop. It's like, I can look at you could tell me your story, and there's nothing that we haven't heard before or
Mhm.
done before, and you could tell me that story, and to you it's like the biggest thing in the world, and to me I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. We're going to get through it. It's okay, you
Yeah.
know, because I've done that. And so I latched on to people that were doing the work that we call now, and they were praying, meditating, talking to people, writing things down, reading, exercising, doing all the things you asked me, what do I do?
Mhm.
Not much has changed in the last 18 years. I It's
Accept
just
everything.
accept everything, and then I just do it at a deeper level now. It's
Mhm.
They say, like, when people talk about diets, and they're like, well, I tried that diet, it didn't work. But it did work. You go on the diet, you do what it says, you stop eating crap, and then you exercise more, you lose 20 pounds. So you start eating cheesecake again, and you get fat again. You're like, well, what happened? I tried that diet, it didn't work. But it did. You stopped doing the things that it told you to do.
Mhm.
So it's the same with sobriety. It's like, you come in, life's falling apart. We're like, here, why don't you try this? And you're like, okay, I'm hurting, I'm going to do that. And then a month later, or a week later, or whatever, you stop doing that stuff because you stopped drinking, but we haven't changed anything else. So a week later or a month later, we stopped drinking, and we stopped doing the things that helped us stop drinking. and then we end up drinking because we don't know how to handle life. That's the real problem, my
Right.
thinking. We haven't changed our thinking. We haven't worked on the real reasons why we drink. So once we start doing that, then we can handle life as it comes at us, because it continues to come at you. It's what's our reaction to it when that happens.
Absolutely. And we have evidence that other people are experiencing those same circumstances and they don't drink. So what's the difference, right? And it feels to me like it's the practice that you described, that self-care practice that helps us cope and do the emotion management stuff.
Mm.
But thank you
Oh,
so
you
much
said
for
a big word there. The
what?
emotion management. I love that. Emotional sobriety
Yeah.
that we talk about. That's really the goal. This
Yeah.
isn't a not drinking contest. It's about growing up and looking the world in the eye and living a life of integrity and honesty and helping people.
Thank you for saying that it's not whatever you said, the
It's
not
not a
drinking
not
content.
drinking contest.
Yeah, that's so funny because we do give accolades to people who don't drink for long periods of time, but it's been my experience that those people can be as batshit crazy or sick as people who are continuing to drink. So this is not a not drinking contest. It's about personal and evolution because we are always evolving. So we're either evolving or devolving. So
Mm,
it's like a muscle. It's like you stay in shape because you continue to exercise, right? And so you're in my mind, like sobriety is like that too. Like my brain has this default and I have to exercise it to get out of that default. And when I stop exercising, I go back to default.
absolutely. Yeah, I was taught we always want to be pushing uphill,
Yeah.
right? And if we're not pushing uphill, we're sliding downhill. There's no planing out. There's no
There's no
like hanging
flaming.
out
Uh-uh.
because but the difference is, and people think that pushing uphill means struggling. It doesn't have to mean struggle. It just
Mm-mm.
means trying to be better than I was yesterday.
Yeah, a little
That's
bit
all that
better
it
than
means.
yesterday.
So what did I do yesterday that worked? Let's do more of that, and let's try to keep going. What
Yeah.
did I do that didn't work? Let's stop doing that.
Yeah.
Let's try to become better. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, this is why it's so important to have like a mentor, like a sponsor or a coach or something to help you sort of stay in balance because yeah, I mean, recovery seems to be full of paradoxes, right? It's like we have to do all this work, but then we have to, stay in peace and we have to meditate and then we have to do growing pains and it's a whole thing. So it's nice to have somebody, but it is just one, like my whole thing is one day at a time, right? We just have to do today, and
Yes.
it's nice to have friends and an environment, set up to support that. So,
Yes.
but
Well, and you know why
speaking,
you need a coach?
why,
You know why you need a coach?
why?
Because we all do. And
I
like,
have one. Yeah.
isn't that great?
I have a
Like,
coach, I have a sponsor, I have a therapist.
yes. And
I'm,
so I was taught, and I'm sure if we talked about this before,
mm,
but it's like I was taught have an expert in every area of your life. So I'm not a
mm,
doctor. If I get sick, I need to go to the doctor. If I have to go to court, I need a lawyer. If I hate doing taxes, I hate it. So I need an accountant every year to help me do that. And apparently I can't get sober on my own. And apparently I have a hard time achieving all my goals on my own. So let's get back to what we said 10 minutes ago. Ask for help. Somebody who's not
yeah,
emotionally attached to my shit, who can see it from out here instead of me going, oh my God, this is how my life's going, and say, well, what if we just look at it from here instead?
yeah,
Oh, wow, I didn't think of that. Of
yeah.
course not, because you're emotionally attached right now to your crap and you can't see through it.
Can't see that. Yeah, I always say that like emotion colors my perspective. I can't see clearly, and I do need somebody who's objective. Are you
I
gonna write
love
that
that.
down?
Yes.
You're looking for a bit.
Emotion colors my perspective.
Yeah, I can't see clearly. I mean,
Mm,
rose-colored glasses.
right. That's
That's a
beautiful.
positive thing, but I don't know if that's positive all the time.
I'm gonna
But
steal that. I'm
anyway,
gonna have to write Arlena Allen underneath.
I'm full of it.
Give you all the credit. You're full of something, full of
All
emotion.
kinds of things. Yeah, I'm an obsessive learner, so I try to fill this with good things. But no, I love that idea of have an expert in every area of your life, which
Mm,
includes like sobriety, goal achievement, and all that stuff. I love it. But this is actually a good segue into, you know, maybe let's just start at the beginning. Like if you're struggling to quit drinking, maybe we can sort of talk a little bit about what are some of the beliefs that maybe the negative limiting beliefs that we have about quitting drinking. A lot of people are afraid to quit drinking, pick a date, or that they're going to start stopping. My son says AA is for quitters. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But some people are really afraid. It's really, there's a lot of socializing that happens with alcohol present. There's, some people that I talk to, they're like, everybody I know drinks. And I'm like, guess what? Nobody that I know drinks. Hardly anybody. It's
Not
just
the way
all,
I did.
well, nobody drinks the way I did. Maybe you
Yeah.
did. Cause you crazy. But it's like, no, we choose people. We choose people to be in our life. There's that saying that if you ordered a shit sandwich, chances are you ordered it. It's like we choose the shitty people in our
I never
lives.
heard that. Yeah.
It's not funny. It's not, yeah, I didn't say it, but so socializing is probably a big area. And then I thought maybe we would also sort of dive into a little bit of what if your partner is still drinking and you want to quit? Those are a couple of tricky ones. So what do you see as some of the limiting beliefs around, not drinking as it relates to socializing?
This is great. Limiting beliefs and behaviors, those harmful beliefs and behaviors that we've
Yeah.
had in most cases for decades.
Decades.
A lot of these,
Unexamined.
what's that?
Unexamined beliefs.
Unexamined. And, maybe we saw dad yelling at mom or hitting mom, or maybe we saw something that our friends did maybe we were 5 years old. And then we're like, I don't know how to handle that, but I find a way through it. And then I carry that behavior, whether it's healthy or not, into my whole life.
Right.
That behavior and those beliefs into my whole life. I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. All those, I'm not funny enough, smart enough, good looking enough. And we carry those all the way through. And then in my case, like I had those when I was 5 years old. Then I started drinking when I'm 15. And that took away some of that pain. And then I was good looking enough and I could talk and then I could dance better and all that stuff. But I never really learned how to cope with those in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people fail in sobriety because they fail to work through these limiting beliefs. So this is a great topic, because when I start with new clients, the first thing we do is we talk about our beliefs about ourselves and like about our body, about our relationships, our family and sexual romantic relationships, our career, our finances, and our spiritual life. Like those pretty much cover life, those areas right there. And let's find all of the limiting beliefs in all those areas, write them down, and then let's start chipping away at those. Because without, like, if we're just thinking about it with our other 80,000 harmful thoughts every day, then we're never going to find a solution. So we need to like work through those. And when we write them down, I take my thoughts, which are running all over the place, my funky brain, and now I put them on paper, and now I have something to work on, something tangible that I can take action on and say, wow, I believe this. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. Well, so I can get rid of that one quick. But this goes deep. How can I work on like debunking that harmful belief? Well, is it really true? Let's look at areas in our life where that's actually bullshit. So I actually have a technical term. It's called bullshit stories we tell ourselves. It's a clinical term, bullshit stories. So we look at those things and be like, I'm not good enough. Well, or I'm not successful, or whatever it is. Say, well, let's see. You've had this job. You're making 6 figures. You're fairly healthy. You have a relationship with your wife or your husband. So that we just proved that wrong. So there's ways to go about doing this and look at the things that we believe and then debunk those bullshit stories that we're telling ourselves.
How do you get somebody to, is there a process for that? Like I do a class, and the way we sort of do it is, what is it that you want and why don't you have it? And the why don't you have it is the BS story that you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have a process for that? Or is it more sort of like you talk it through? How do you help people identify their story?
Well, I mean, like kind of like I just said, like
Oh,
in
okay.
those areas, like that's a specific exercise how I start with.
Oh,
Because a
okay.
lot of the reason, remember the drinking and the drugs and the food and the porn and the shopping and the Netflix, the
Mhm.
scrolling, like all that
Stop
stuff.
talking about Netflix. That's not a problem.
I need my Netflix.
For
Um,
me.
but those right, but those things, like those aren't the problem.
Those
That's what
aren't the
I'm using to
problem.
cope with the real problem, which is my thinking.
Distractions. Yeah.
Yes, those are distractions. Even the drinking. Now, drinking is twofold problem because that gets into there's physical things and
Oh,
that
right.
gets
Yeah,
into
yeah,
health
yeah.
stuff. But the truth
So
is,
that's a physical addiction as opposed to a process addiction.
well, I mean that it is an addiction but it is still just a distraction
It
at
is
the
a
end of the day.
distraction. Yes, I
And then we
agree.
have to watch for cross addictions. Like I quit
Yes.
drinking, but I'm going to smoke weed, or I'll quit smoking weed, but I'm going to eat a pizza every day. And I'm
Yeah.
going to quit eating pizza, but I'll eat a pound of chocolate every day. But I'll quit that,
Sugar.
but I'm going to smoke cigarettes or
So this is
whatever it is.
all distraction.
All distractions from feeling and from dealing with our
Okay.
limiting beliefs.
Whether okay.
Yeah. So when we
Yeah,
identify
that is
those,
okay.
write them down.
Hmm.
Now we can work on
Write
them.
them
Say,
down.
all right, well, this has been going on in my life for 30 years. So it's probably going to take a little bit of time, but let's create some new healthy habits, some new ways of doing things that are going to help me become successful. And then we want to define some goals. So
Okay.
let's say this. Let's say, all right, here's how I believe about my body. And this is how my health is. But I want it to be like this. Now we have a goal. And this is how my finances are, but this is how I want my finances to be. Now we have a goal. So when we say these are my beliefs about myself in all those areas,
Uh-huh.
and then there's where I want to go, and then let's work on one at a time
One at a
because we
time.
not all of them, because this is another reason people get overwhelmed and then
Oh
they do things
yeah.
like drink because New Year's resolutions. Well, every New Year I'm going to write a book, lose 20 pounds, fix my relationship, make $1 million, and do all this stuff. And 2 weeks later, you're like, oh my God, I can't handle this. So I
Yeah.
start drinking again and eat chocolate. And then next New Year's, it's the same 5 New Year's resolutions.
Vicious.
So what we need to do is focus on one goal, the one that's going to change your life the most, probably the one that you've been putting off for 10 years.
Right.
And then let's create specific steps to get that goal done at a high level. And then you don't need to drink. Like you
Right.
start building confidence and you
Yeah.
start feeling good about yourself and you walk out into the world with your chin up and looking the world in the eye. And that's what
Mhm.
we want to do. And there's no space then for drinking or getting stoned or whatever your harmful behavior is.
Right. No, that's beautiful. I love that. Um, Talk to me a little bit. How would you help somebody who has problems quitting drinking because their partner still drinks? How do you address that? That's a tough one, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that has layers. So it depends. Is the other person an alcoholic? Are they just drinking socially and don't want to quit? Do you have the hard talk with them? Maybe they will stop with you. So,
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. Is it causing you to have cravings and causing you to relapse? Then maybe we need to talk about boundaries. Maybe
Hmm.
we say, if you can't stop drinking, then I'm going to have to leave for a little while or indefinite or whatever,
Hmm.
because you have to take care of you. Remember, self-love, self-care, self-respect, and having
Priority.
people around that are going to continue to
Mm.
cause damage to my own health and well-being. That's not self-love. That's not self-care and self-respect. So, these are the hard things to do. And this is why it's important to have somebody in your life, because it's not easy to say to your husband or wife, if you can't stop drinking, I am going to leave. So
Or you have to leave.
or you have to leave. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. Because
Yeah.
those are the hard talks, but it's a paradox. The most successful relationships in the world are two independent people, not codependent people, who have the hard talks and do
Yeah.
the hard things, and they get through those things.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It is multifaceted, and it seems like every situation is different. And that is why it's important to have like an objective third party to help. process through all these, there's so many questions,
Mm.
right? But I feel like hit the nail on the head by saying that, the self-care and the self-love has to come first. And what you're really talking about is priorities. Like when you're quitting drinking, sobriety has to be your number one priority before your kids, before your husband, before your job, which strikes at the heart of fear of some people because their financial security, you know, emotional security, personal security, is tied to relationships and jobs and things like that. But if you are really struggling with alcohol, then it's going to cost you everything that it is that you say is important to you.
Mm. Yeah, that self-love, self-care, and self-respect. People, there's another misconception, and that is if I'm doing those things, I'm being selfish. And there's a difference
Ooh.
between being selfish and taking care of yourself. And it's kind of like, this is maybe people have heard this before, but it's like, when the oxygen comes down in the airplane,
Mm-hmm.
I need to put it over my nose first, because if I'm not breathing, I can't help anybody else. So it's the same thing with everything. I need to take care of me. If my health is failing because I can't stop drinking, then I need to start taking care of my health. And if somebody's in the way of that, then we have to stop the amount of time or reduce the amount of time that I spend with them, because
Mm-hmm.
I need to take care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that gets lost. And that's something we have to build in sobriety, is we have to take some of the shame and the guilt away, which is why we talk about those things, and become humble, but take care of yourself. And
Yeah.
that means diet, exercise, meditation, reading things that are going to be productive. When I was drinking, I didn't do any of those things. There wasn't any space for that. So I need to add healthy habits into my life that are going
Yeah.
to distract me from the distraction of drinking.
Right. You said something that really caught my attention, take away guilt and shame, because I feel like the guilt and shame is what prevents us from the self-love and making ourselves a priority. And we tie so much guilt and shame to alcoholism or addiction because we do shitty things when we're drunk or high or lost in our addiction. When we're lost in our addiction, we behave badly.
Mm.
And so we have evidence that says I'm a shitty person. So maybe that's a negative limiting belief, right? That this guilt and shame is your identity, right? And it's important to separate. Don't you find that it's important to separate that guilt and shame? How do you help people take that away?
Well, yeah, all of um, the regret,
Oh,
all of the
horrible.
worrying about what I've done in the past, all the guilt and the shame can't change one moment of the past. So we
Yeah.
really need to learn to let that be in the past.
Let it
And
go.
and we need to forgive ourselves. And in the 12-step program, it's the fourth step. It's about like going in, finding your where your
Victor defect.
resentments, where
Yeah.
your fears are, all those things, and then moving all through the work, and you get up to where you go make amends to people, and then putting the past in the past. That's the idea of all that.
Yeah.
And that's
That's a great process.
it's an incredible process, yes. And then we go even further. It's like continuing the growth, but it's important, and an important amends to make, apology to make, whatever you want to call it, is to yourself. We
Ooh.
need to forgive ourselves. And one of the processes I do is I have a 4-step forgiveness process where we work through. And the first part um, is getting all the anger out, because you can't be angry, resentful, and love at the same time, right? So we
Get
need to
anger
get
out.
any anger out. And this comes in the form of letters. So I write
Ooh.
letters to my parents, my ex, my friends that screwed me over, the president, all these people like that we hate and we're mad at. So we write letters saying, you know what, I hate you. I can't believe you did this. Fuck you. You screwed my life up, blah, blah, blah. We got to get all that anger out. And that process could take, I have one woman who I work with, she was raped twice. And, going through a forgiveness process, there's a lot of anger in there from 30 years ago. So
Wow.
we worked on this for months of getting anger out, and
Can I
then
make a
moved into the next letter, which is, you know what, I forgive you. I know that you were just doing the best that you can. And, I hope that we're both able to move on, and I wish you well.
so it's a
Now,
the second letter is a letter of compassion.
yes, yeah, a letter of love, forgiveness, compassion. Now, if while
Right.
you're doing that letter, you're like, I forgive you, but fuck you, I still can't believe you did it. That means all the anger is not out. So we need to go
Right.
back to the beginning and continue to get the anger out.
Are they reading these letters to you?
Yes, to me. These
Ah,
aren't for anybody
no, no,
else.
no, no. Right. No, I get that. Okay. So what you're talking about is validating. In my mind, like people just can't move on until their feelings are acknowledged and validated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and that's what you're describing is you hold space for them to you hear. God, sometimes people just want to be heard,
Mm,
right? Like nobody's listening, like everyone's talking, nobody's listening. So you hold this safe space of listening and you hear and see and feel with your heart. Yes, that sucked. I agree with you. I hear you. That must have been horrible. Right. And there's almost something, it de-escalates something, just that validation. In my mind, people cannot move on until they're seen, heard, and validated. And then they can move to compassion and forgiveness. Like
yeah. Yeah. And it takes time. Remember, a
takes
lot of
time.
this
Yeah.
stuff, a lot of the stuff we deal with is unresolved emotion. It's unresolved things from the past, whatever it was. And these things could be decades old, and it's going to take longer than
Mm,
a week or a month to undo these beliefs, behaviors, habits, ways
yeah.
of living that have been keeping us sick. It's going to take a while to undo that.
Yeah.
And
It takes
and it's
time
a
to undo.
process, but the painful process helps us have sustained growth, right? Like
Well,
we can
that's what
have
sorry to interrupt you, but if I don't say it now, I'm going to forget
no, go.
because I'm old. No, it does take time to undo because, and this is sort of an interesting point. Have you ever heard that saying that time heals all wounds?
Mhm.
Ah, it's such a lie. Time
Time
does
with
not.
action.
Ah, yeah. Time with action heals wounds.
Mm.
I love that. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no problem.
What were you saying?
I forgot. I'm old too.
We both forgot. Fuck. Sorry.
No, it's cool.
Okay. So get the anger out through the letters. It takes time with action.
Yeah, and then at the end, ultimately, we want to forgive ourselves.
Forgive
We want to get to a
ourselves.
place where, what, I love you. I love you, Arlena. I love you, Dennis. I love you, me. I love me. And we all make mistakes, and ultimately, that's where we want to get. And it takes a little time to get there,
Mhm.
and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's something silly. Like rape is a horrible, like one of the worst things that could ever happen in your life. So that one takes a little more work. Sometimes it's smaller things, but
Mhm.
we just have to be willing to do the work. And once we start doing the work, then change happens. But if we continue to
Yeah.
stay in our 80,000 stagnant thoughts from yesterday that are keeping us sick, we're
Right.
not going to grow out of it.
Well, there's, the shadow side of all this is like we do it because it serves us in some way, right?
We think it does.
We think it does. Yeah, we think it does. And I feel like that's like subconscious mind's job is to sort of keep you in this little comfort zone because that's, we develop like the default mode network, this way of thinking, this operating system, and then your subconscious mind to conserve energy will try to keep you there, right? But it doesn't ultimately serve you because it's like you have all this pain that you're not dealing with, and that's what's causing you to drink or behave in a destructive way.
Mm.
So I love this forgiveness process. And so gosh, I could talk to you all day, but I realize I want to be sensitive to your time. Um
Oh,
okay, so the
I'm all yours.
Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, so okay, so we ultimately forgive ourselves. And so my belief is that we cannot escape the same measuring stick that we judge others by. So if we're, yeah, I know it's a good one. Are you going to write that one down?
That's a good one. I love that one.
Right. So the reason to forgive, in my mind, is that, have you ever heard that idea that anger is like, or resentment's like anger damages the vessel that carries it, right? It's like acid, like that anger just poisons us, right? But we hold on to this resentment because we're holding these other people to this standard that may or may not be, well, I don't know, it's like not serving anybody really. But
Well, no, you know, that resentment, holding
yeah.
on to that anger, you know what that is?
What?
That's another distraction.
Oh,
That's
yes.
exactly what that is. So having drinking, getting stoned, I won't say Netflix anymore, but
Okay.
scrolling, the eating Chick-fil-A at 3 p.m, and
Mm.
holding resentments, those
Anger
are
is a
all distractions from
distraction.
feeling and growing. That's what they
Ooh,
all are. It's the same thing.
you are healing the world today.
It's the truth. I mean,
I
this
believe
is
that
deep
to
thinking.
my
This is
core.
going deep, and most people aren't even willing to go this deep because it's painful.
It
It's
is
hard
painful.
to
These are
get.
growing pains though, right? And the thing is life is painful anyway. So we're going to experience pain. So we may as well be intentional about it and process the pain to resolution rather than continue our distracting behaviors.
That was masterful.
And
That's
you
exactly
are
true.
well, thank you. And you are such a great facilitator for people. How do people find you and work with you if you do indeed have, I know your calendar is full, but if you could squeeze one or two people in, how would somebody go about reaching out to you?
There's always room to help people.
Oh, you're so
So it's
sweet.
at dennisberry.com, and you can schedule a free session on there, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll have a chat. And if you like it, we'll chat some more. And if not, I understand. And
Yeah.
from there, you can buy my book and you can get to my podcast. And the Life Mastery School you were talking about is I'm
Mm-hmm.
creating a series of free videos.
Mm-hmm.
And the current one that's up there now is addiction recovery. And there's like
Ooh,
15 or 20 videos there. And then
15 or 20.
yes, and they're all free to watch. And then there's different topics within there. And I did love and relationships. There's about 10 or 15 there. And I'm
Ooh.
working on mindfulness and meditation, which we were just talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and health and wellness. So
Mm-hmm.
it's Life Mastery School by Dennis Berry. And you just come in, you can watch all the classes you want for free.
Life Mastery School by
Yeah,
dennisberry.com.
no,
No.
it's on my
Oh,
website.
everything's on dennisberry.com.
Yeah, everything's right on there. Life Mastery School
Life Mastery
on
School.
the dennisberry.com website.
Got
Hopefully
it.
that wasn't confusing. Just go to
No, you
dennisberry.com.
just go to dennisberry.com. I'll leave a link. If you're driving while listening to this, I will leave a link per usual in the show notes. I will also include, man, the forgiveness process. That was intense. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, and if anybody reaches out via this, then I'll just send them a free copy, a PDF copy of my book,
Oh, how nice. What's the name of your book?
Funky Wisdom, A Practical Guide to Life.
I love that. So good. Um, okay, yeah. So I will leave links to the books. I'll have the quotes in there. There was a lot of quotes actually. You gave great quotes. And I'll leave a link to your website, podcast, and book.
That
Yay.
was a lot of stuff. You're the best. I love you.
Oh,
You're
I
my
love you. You're
you're
my
the
brother
best.
from another mother for sure. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. I know that your whole purpose, like you're living your purpose, as am I now. Yay. It feels really good to be of service and turn that in service. I would say that service is probably one of the fastest way to improve your self-esteem. If you're struggling with guilt and shame, start getting into service because that will help mitigate that as well.
So powerful. So true. You know, I say
Yeah.
that all the time. What, you know, are you worried or stressed out or resentful or angry or whatever your feeling is? Did you help anybody today?
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be a big thing, and sometimes it could be just holding the door open for somebody, but just
But
stop
do it
thinking
with
about
heart.
you. Yes.
Do it with intention. I
Mm.
love that. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for being so awesome all the
Thank
time.
you.
Well, good luck to your move to Mexico. I look forward to seeing all the pictures on all your socials. I'll leave links to that too. But thank you so much for your time today. I
Thank
love
you,
you.
Arlene. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. We'll talk again soon.
Mwah.
Bye.